Good morning, everyone. We will start our April 27th, 2021 Board of Commissioning meeting. Our first order of business, please stand and join me for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our first item is to review our agenda. Any corrections or additions, Bob?
Mr. Chair, there are no changes to the agenda today.
Thank
I'll
you.
move the agenda.
People
Mike
seconds.
Got a first and a second. So any discussion? Please call the roll, Stephanie.
Commissioner Papp.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg.
Aye.
Chair Brunner.
Aye. Motion carries for the agenda. Our first item on the agenda today is planning and zoning. And we got Garrett here this morning. Good morning, Garrett.
Morning, Garrett.
Morning, Commissioners.
Hi, Garrett.
PC 08-21 is a request from Daniel and Marie Ireland for review and approval of a conditional use permit to operate an ag supply business. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in part of the southeast quarter of the northeast quarter and part of the southwest quarter of the northeast quarter of Section 11 Decoria Township. The location address for the site is 59282 187th Street, Mankato, Minnesota. Staff presented the report. The applicant was present and had no additional comment. There was no public comment. Members of the Planning Commission had no issue with the proposal. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted a recommendation for approval of the request based on the findings prepared by staff and the conditions proposed. And the board action is the resolution.
Thank you, Garrett. At this time, I will open it up for public comment. This hearing is being recorded, so please state your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. To unmute your phone, click the microphone button on the bottom of your computer screen or press *6. So I will ask if there, first of all, is the applicant on the phone and if you have anything to add at this time. Okay, anyone wishing to comment on PC 0821 for Daniel and Marie? Anyone wishing to comment on PC 0821? Please state your name and address for the record. Okay, last time, anyone wishing to comment on PC 0821? Okay, seeing and hearing no public comment, I will close it and bring it back to the board for action.
I'll move approval of PC 0821.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and a second for the conditional use permit. Any discussion, questions, or comments? I don't have any questions, but Garrett, the Irelands are very pleased with the performance you guys did for putting the permit together. I know it was a relatively difficult one, but the Irelands have been doing great business over in that area for many years, so this is good to see this move forward. If there's no other questions or comments, I will ask Stephanie to call the roll.
Commissioner Papp.
Aye.
Commissioner People.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg.
Aye.
Chair Brunner.
Aye. Motion carries for PC 0821. Our next item is PC 0921.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. PC 09-21 is a request from Ryan Keel and Melissa Giesecke Keel for review and approval of an after-the-fact interim use permit to operate a lawn care and snow removal business in the agricultural zone district. The property is located in part of the northwest quarter of the southeast quarter and part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 31 Luray Township. The location address for the site is 60298 197th Lane, Mankato, Minnesota. Staff presented the report. The applicant was present and had no additional comment. There was no public comment. Members of the Planning Commission had no issue with the proposal. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation for approval of the request based on the findings prepared by staff and the conditions proposed, and the board action is the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Garrett. First of all, is the applicant on the phone, Ryan or Melissa? Do you have anything to add at this time? Okay, hearing none. Anyone wishing to comment on PC 0921 for Ryan and Melissa? Please state your name and address for the record. Anyone wishing to comment on PC 0921, please state your name and address for the record. And last time, anyone wishing to comment on PC 0921 for Ryan and Melissa and the land care and snow removal business? Hearing no public comment, I'll close the public portion of this meeting and bring it back to the county board for action.
Mr. Chair, I'll move PC 09-21 for
Okay, do I
approval.
have a second?
Hap seconds.
Thank you. Any discussion from the county board? Questions?
What does it mean after the fact?
What's that, Vance?
What does it mean after the fact?
They've been operating the business already and
Found it.
They didn't have the permit
didn't have the
before?
permit before, so we're trying to catch up on some
All
of
it's
those.
doing is catching it up and...
Yep. Some people just don't know they need to have it. Some people
Understand.
have it, and so I think we have a different fee structure, but we like to get all these accounted for, so.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Hearing no other comments on PC 0921, I have a motion and a second. Stephanie, would you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Pap,
Aye.
Commissioner Pepo,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg,
Aye.
Chair Brunder.
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Garrett. Yep, go ahead, Scott.
Mr. Chair, board members, PC 10-21 is a request from Blue Earth County, and it's an amendment to Chapter 6 of the County Code, the Environment Section, Article 5, Subsurface Sewage Treatment Systems. The current ordinance was reviewed, and the proposed amendments reconcile with Minnesota Rules Chapter 7080 through 7083 and incorporate language to conform with the existing practices of the septic system program. At the Planning Commission meeting, staff presented the staff report and the amendments. There was no public comment. Members of the Planning Commission had no issues with the proposal and complimented staff for reaching out to the area contractors for input and their continued efforts to keep the current ordinances current. Following discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation for approval of the proposed ordinance amendment based on the findings prepared in the staff report. And the board action is adoption of the ordinance amendment. Since the Planning Commission meeting just this morning, Carl Friedrichs had submitted an email to all the county board, and I believe he's on the Zoom call, and Jesse Anderson, our environmental health specialist, is also on if there's technical questions regarding the ordinance amendment.
Thank you, Scott, for that report. And I won't ask if the applicant's here because he's standing right in front of us for Blue Earth County. So if there's anyone that would like to comment from the public on PC 1021 for the subsurface sewer drainage system, please state your name and address for the record.
Morning, folks. Carl Friedrichs here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, Carl.
Okay, Carl Friedrichs, 59077 Landing Lane, Mankato, Minnesota. I noticed in this new ordinance you provide exceptions for joint tenancies, terminating when one of the spouses dies, and for divorce situations. As I indicated in my email to you folks, I think exceptions should also be granted for a limited number of estate planning situations. For example, when property is transferred to a revocable living trust, a special needs trust, or a supplemental needs trust. In most all of those situations, the owner remains living in the home as long as possible to continue their life, but it's in the home, but it's their estate planning purposes. They don't actually move out of the home, so I don't think a compliance check should be needed. I did send proposed language for modification, adding in section F. That would read, when title to real property is transferred to a revocable living trust, special needs trust, or supplemental needs trust, in which the grantor of the trust or their spouse or descendants remain as occupants of the property after the transfer of the property to the trust, that would remain an exception. The other concern is when the occupant of the property needs assistance at home and one of the family members move home to care for them. It's happening more often with COVID right now because folks are trying to stay out of long-term care facilities with the restrictions on visitation rights. In that situation, the owner of the home often does not have the money to pay the person moving in to care for them, much less for a septic system upgrade that would be required after a compliance check, but they'd like to compensate them in some way for assistance if they're moving into the home. And in that case, usually a quitclaim deed transfers the real estate to the children that are providing the care. You will note that in the proposed language I sent for a subsection B, it is limited to situations when the title is transferred to the owner of the property, from the owner of the property to a descendant of the owner after the descendant has resided in the property in order to provide care and assistance to the owner of the property due to health conditions of the owner. Those two situations, I think, would be beneficial as exceptions, especially the second one on the county budget, because the children moving in to care for the parents saves the cost of long-term care if the parent would otherwise have to move to long-term care. As I indicated in my email, there are also the special needs trust situation just arose recently where a county social worker had me assist a person in creating a special needs trust for them so they could remain living in the home as long as possible without having to sell the tillable acres from the building site. That person clearly did not have the money that would be needed to install a new septic if it would have been required, and I don't know if it was in that situation or not. But a special needs trust situation further benefits the county by allowing the person to remain in their home as long as possible. So I would ask that you add these subsections F and G as I proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl, for those comments. Is there anyone else wishing to comment on PC 1021, surface sewage treatment system? Anyone else wishing to comment on PC 1021 for Blue Earth County? Hearing no public comment, or no more public comment, I will close the public portion of this meeting and bring it back to the county board for action and discussion. If there's no other questions from the, okay, go ahead, Vance.
I would move with the additions of Mr. Friedrich's F and G.
Okay, do I have a second?
I don't know if it's...
Motion dies for lack of a second. Should we get a little clarification maybe from Jesse? Do you want to weigh in on Carl's comments if you were able to hear them?
Yes, good morning. Jesse Anderson, Property Environmental Services for Blue Earth County. Yeah, great comments from Carl. But we kind of reviewed this. I don't know how many of these would happen, and you're just sticking with the property transfer. It's, you know, it's a mechanism to catch these and upgrade the septic systems.
Sure. Thank you, Jesse. Pat, could I call on you for your opinion? I think we kind of ran into the same situation with the last ordinance we had.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. Mr. Chair, I believe it's important to note that this matter has gone through a significant process with staff in reviewing these matters and reaching out to contractors and receiving information from various interested parties. I think the comments from Mr. Friedrichs could be adopted by the board if the board so choose. But at the same time, I look at this matter and from this respect, if the board resolution is as staff has proposed, they are giving staff more tools, so to speak, with respect to any potential enforcement actions. It doesn't always matter because staff has always consistently, at the end of the day, Blue Earth County simply wants compliance. And staff continues to work with numerous people that are out of compliance, and I think just the last resolution that somebody comes in for a variance after the fact, staff works with them to get them into compliance and do what they can do. I think at the end of the day, if adopted as staff is presented, you are allowing staff to have more tools in their tool belt, so to speak, and give them other options in working with people in the future, whereas as proposed by Mr. Friedrichs, there's that potential that that tool would not be available to staff if needed.
Sure. Thank you, Pat, for that input. Other questions or comments from Kevin?
So was this information available to the Planning Commission, and have they looked through any of this?
We supported it, yep. Last meeting, we had this full program, and plus we had a work session on it a while ago, briefly.
As a board, but
Yep,
these
yep, yep, planning,
ideas
zoning
submitted today were also submitted to Planning Commission?
Correct.
So they have vetted those as well?
Yep, and they were happy with these recommendations. We didn't have, Carl was not at the public hearing for the planning and zoning meeting. So we didn't look at his options. We had all of this in front of us, yes. And they were all very supportive of the language we have.
Mr. Chair, just so I can clarify to myself, but the Planning Commission has not seen the letter from Carl?
Correct.
Okay.
As far as I know.
that's what you were asking.
Oh, I'm sorry about the information. Yeah, no, we have not, we didn't, as far as I know, we didn't read it into record, and Carl wasn't at the public hearing, so we didn't have any of this information.
Yeah.
Thank you for that clarification, Clean.
Mr. Chair, I have concerns about non-compliant septic systems, and trying to figure out how to work with people in order to get them compliant, I think is really important. So judging from the county attorney's discussion on this, it gives our staff more tools to help people be compliant. And so I think that's pretty important. And it's concerning to me that I got this last night, and that the Planning and Zoning Committee had not seen it either.
Other questions or comments? Otherwise, I'll look for a motion. Kevin?
I guess I would just, and I too believe that it's important to be compliant, and what we can do to help us all get to that point is also important. But I would like to see the process work. I too would just, like we've had other letters from other agencies and things like that come in the last minute. What is our timeline for this? Is this a tight timeline? I know we've had a work session on it. As a board, Planning Commission, is it worth the effort? Of the proper way would be to have the Planning Commission review the additional information that they have not seen, if that makes any difference in their recommendation. I'm just wondering what our timeline is as far as our necessity to have it done today, so to speak.
Yeah. Scott, can you give us some insight on that, or maybe Jesse?
I guess one thing that we've talked
I could probably do so, Mr. Chairman.
Mark, thank you, Mark.
Property and Environment Resources. Sorry to interject there, Scott. The reason that we would like the resolution passed today is more so for everything that is all encompassed in the changes, because it allows us to be consistent with our application of the ordinance throughout the construction season of the septic systems, which has been beneficial from my understanding with other staff. That isn't to say that we couldn't review certain sections of this again and come with a future amendment if so needed, or if the need arose there. But the reason the timing of the septic system was put in place now is we worked through the fall to gather the information, make the changes, work with the contractors, the county attorney's office, the MPCA for the review, in hopes that we would have this adopted in April so that we could apply it consistently throughout the construction season. So sorry to interrupt. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That was very helpful. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I appreciate that, and that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate the forethought. These ideas have nothing really to do with any of the state compliance or anything else, so we could adopt this and then also ask the Planning Commission to take a look at those ideas, and if need be, we could do something down the road if this becomes an issue. Would that be correct?
That's outside of my expertise, so I'm going to call on Jesse to answer that question as far as legality of how this fits in with the state. So Jesse, can you help us with that, or Mark?
Yeah, I can. I mean, that's definitely something that we can do.
Okay.
I don't know if Mark wants to add anything.
Just to add to that, Commissioner Papp is correct. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jesse, but the property transfer what I'll say mechanism for compliance inspection is a local regulation, not a state regulation. So they give us the authority to have those mechanisms in place, but we are choosing as the county to use the property transfer as one of those mechanisms.
Thank you, Mark.
That is correct, Mark.
Okay, does that answer your question, Kevin? Vance?
And the reason I guess I proposed the F and G is, I also saw that it came in late last night, and that was upsetting. But I've worked with a lot of special needs people. I've worked with a lot of people that have parents and elderly that they want to keep in their home, but somebody else takes over. Mr. Fredericks has some very common sense ideas here. Now, I would have no problem if we went ahead and passed this, and knowing that we will work with people that have these issues, and the county has historically done that, and I have no problem with that. But and also with the ideas of maybe bringing this back to planning and zoning, saying, can we adopt these at a later time, or adopt them so it works with our county ordinances and what we're trying to get at. We've always been a county with heart. We've always been a county that helps people out, and that's what Mr. Friedrich's additions do here. They bring the heart out and saying, hey, these people need help, and let's not throw another $15,000 septic system on top of what they're doing already. But I have no problem passing it as long as we keep on working on this, and if a special needs does come up, the board looks at it, and like we always do. That's it.
Thank you, Vance. Other questions or comments?
Well, I would just basically concur with what Vance is saying. Yeah, I think if it was with the part with the attorney or Friedrichs, and just look at it in the future with people that have that situation. Yeah.
Kevin?
I have one additional comment. I really appreciate staff's outreach to the contractors as I visited with them myself, and just wanted, to help understand some of this a little bit better. Really appreciate the outreach with the contractors in the area and stuff to get their buy-in and have them feel like they've got some skin in the game in this decision. So thank you for that. And at this time, I would move the resolution.
Okay, I got a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second for PC 1021. We've had plenty of discussion, but I will add, anyone else have any other discussion or final thoughts? So we will pass this ordinance today, and I would recommend that we bring the letter to the next planning and zoning meeting just to get their feedback at this point, but not to start any formal action, just so that they have all the information.
Yep.
It's a great idea.
So I got a motion and a second for PC 1021. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Stephanie, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner Beepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries for the Blue Earth County. Thank you for everybody that testified. Appreciate it. We will move on now to PC 1121.
Okay, PC 11-21 is Blue Earth County. It's another ordinance amendment, and this one's to Chapter 24, the zoning chapter of the code, definitions and word usage, as well as the campground standards to update definitions and standards for campgrounds. The ordinance amendment creates application standards for campgrounds and updates standards related to health and safety, including water supply, wells, public safety, wastewater, setbacks, and stormwater. At the Planning Commission meeting, staff presented the report. There was no public comment, and members of the Planning Commission had a brief discussion and had no issues with the proposal. Following discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation for approval of the proposed amendment based on the findings in the staff report. And the board action today is an ordinance amendment to adopt the changes to the campground standards. And just a quick note, the future amendments will be to the shoreland section of the code to allow campgrounds as an interim use in shoreland, as well as potential amendments for the urban fringe overlay district.
Great. Thank you for that clarification, Scott. right, Blue Earth County is the applicant, and they are here and present. If there's anyone wishing to comment on PC 1121, the campground updates, please state your name and address for the record, please. Anyone wishing to comment on PC 1121 for Blue Earth County, please state your name and address for the record. And last call, anyone wishing to comment on PC 1121, please state your name and address for the record. Having no public comment, I will close the public comment portion of the meeting and bring it back to the county board for action and discussion.
I'll move approval of PC 1121.
Thank you, Colleen. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Any discussion or questions on PC 1121 for the campground standards? Process we've been working on for many months. And it's just one step closer to getting the process finished out. If there's no comments or questions, Stephanie, we will call the roll.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner Peepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Strumberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries for PC 1121.
Next item is just for informational only. It's PC 12-21. It's the Blue Earth County and other ordinance amendment to the home occupation standards in the county code. At the Planning Commission meeting, staff presented the report and there was no public comment. The Planning Commission did have a good discussion on the standards for level 1 home occupations and the size restrictions. We're proposing to increase the allowable size from 500 square feet to 1,000 square feet. So Planning Commission had a very good discussion and recommended that we table the item till our May Planning Commission meeting, where we'll have a few other options for those level 1 home occupations for the size restrictions. The thought was that a 1,000 square foot level 1 home occupation in a residential area was a little too intense, and potential issues with the intensity of that business use in neighborhoods with residences. So we have a few options that we'll be considering at next week's Planning Commission meeting and for discussion with the Planning Commission.
Yep. We had good discussion about it, and it just wasn't ready to bring back to this board, so I actually recommended to table it, so. But we had great discussion, as Scott said. All right, Scott, thank you for your report today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
Okay, now we'll move on to item number 4, or Human Services.
I think we got through that quicker than we thought we would.
You never know with the public hearings. So.
That's right.
Yeah, we had a lot of items. We had actually, our meeting went pretty late at Planning and Zoning because we had a lot of discussion. And then they had a Board of Adjustment item, 3 items before that, so pretty busy day.
Good morning.
Good morning. They're pretty.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Everyone, it's good to see you.
You're pretty much on time.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, thank you for hearing us this morning. We have one action item, and I apologize I did not put the dollar amount, which it is a big ticket item for us. Minnesota Department of Health and Public Health Emergency Preparedness, which we refer to as FEP. And the narrative there you see provides funding for COVID-related activities that are non-vaccination activities. And so examples might be testing, providing essential services, which has still been a significant part of our efforts, is helping people that have practical needs. And then other resources, just as far as hard materials that we need to use or possibly share with our partners in the community. So, you know, Kelly can certainly address some of that too, or you'll hear that embedded in what our status is with COVID. But the amount for that contract is $479,018. The term is April 1st of 21 through December 31st of 21. So short time frame, a big chunk of money. It will mostly get used for staffing dollars. So that would be how we'd capture most of that money. And we do have some overtime that we're experiencing now too, and so that's part of that picture. And Mr. Chair, that's really the action item I have for today.
Okay, thank you, Phil.
I'll move approval of the action item.
Thank you, Colleen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Is there any questions or discussion for Phil?
Just a comment, I was on the SHAC meeting on Friday.
Yes.
And the executive committee had sent a letter to the governor requesting that American Rescue money be used for public health. Public health has been not fully funded. How can counties pay more than the federal or the state by far? And the money just hasn't come for public health from the state or the feds. So just a comment, because I think that ties into this.
It sure does, and, you know, so we have a local version of those dollars that we can, you know, decide, that Bob will decide how we distribute those. The state dollars that the commissioner's talking about, and that they're interested in helping us in this way, and then these dollars that we're talking about, they all go to the same purpose. I do think it's a golden opportunity in the midst of a pandemic where we're trying to figure out both the immediate needs, but also that infrastructure issue that you raised, which is how do we set the table for the future? And if there are more public health emergencies like this, we've struggled. I just asked Kelly when we were in the other room, how are we doing with tuberculosis? Because in our community, that has been a big issue, with often a lot of contact tracing that we have to do and a lot of staff time, and we're really not prepared for that usually. And sometimes that comes in waves, so we'll have 5 active cases and we're just not able to fill that. So the smart part about how do we set that table, how do we build infrastructure, the bridge to the future, whatever that might be, as well as our immediate needs, because there's no doubt there's a responsiveness to what we're facing currently. Thank you for that.
We got a vote yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
What
Is there
the
other- is there other questions?
Well, I just had a quick, I mean, maybe I heard somewhere, you got an idea what amount the grant would be?
This grant, yeah, I didn't put it in the board report, Commissioner, I'm sorry. It is almost $480,000, this one. And it's got a term of April 1st through December 31st. I usually put that in my report and I just forgot.
All right, other questions? Thank you, Phil. I got a motion and a second for the action items. Any other discussion? Stephanie, we call the roll, please.
Commissioner Pap?
Aye.
Commissioner People?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Struenberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, some informational discussion items. I'll have the first 2 and then trade off with Kelly to give our COVID update. The first item is our billing services that we do, which is very unique. It's unique in our county. About a handful of counties have a mental health center, which drives some of this. But then also, we've been allowed at our scale and scope to look at an accounting unit, and then more specifically, this billing unit that goes in and chases revenue. As most of us are aware, there's a lot of complexity to that, especially when you deal with insurance companies. The regulations, which we've long wanted more streamlining, but we get audited separately on different cycles, different mechanisms on how we get audited, and then our reporting and claiming is also unique to the provider. So we're hoping over time that we can still chip away at that and try to streamline it. But you'll see some results here. This is a way to quantify some of our efforts to, you know, the transparency to show what we're doing in real terms. The thing that isn't represented here, and you'll see on child support, which is the next topic, is, you know, those soft skills of how we treat folks that come in for service, and I think that's equally important. I think with COVID, we've both been stretched in those ways. The volume's been high. We've kind of always prided ourselves in high caseloads, but at times, then, you know, you get a little crispy, is what I refer to it. And so trying to manage our workforce with all of those factors is important. But here's the data to give us a sense in some metrics kind of way what we're up to. The billing unit was started in 2015, so it hasn't really been around that long. The unit bills for over 15 program areas that have revenue attached, which is unique. A lot of county service, local government does not have a way to bill, but we do in 15 of our areas. Targeted case management, which most all of you have heard quite a bit about, and the mental health center are the 2 big drivers as far as the claims we have for revenue. The graphic shows the different types of TCM that we have, and there's 3 types. They're called child welfare, which we refer to as CW, vulnerable adult, and the mental health TCM. Those 3 areas can be tapped by 7 different units that we have. So depending on the nature of the work, they can access these revenue sources. You'll see by far the biggest one of the TCM, of the targeted case management, is in mental health, and you'll see the aggregate overall, if you go to year-to-date, bottom right, that we did overperform our budget, which is great by almost $500,000. There's about 700 claims each month that are run through our billing team. So very significant volume and some significant dollars that do help our overall budget picture. The second graphic at the bottom is more specific to the mental health claims in the mental health center. We have 35 different insurance companies, and that number has at times even been larger as far as how many different contracts we engage. Over 99% of the claims that go to insurance get paid the first time, which is a great number. That 1% gives us fits of trying to chase and rechase. So it's a 99-to-1 ratio, but I'm telling you, there's a ton of time spent. And I think if you don't do that 1% well, you give it away, it's kind of a slippery slope. I think it just gets bigger and bigger. So staff take a lot of pride in trying to chase those dollars as best we can. And we do end up, of course, writing off some significant dollars as well. 2019 numbers, probably our most stable year, is why I think Sarah pulled this out, but $863,000 was billed through the mental health center, just to give you some idea, and you'll see pretty flat numbers of the average number of claims per week according to the mental health center. I'm going to move on to child support, the next series of slides, and the breakdown here is Sarah is also the supervisor part-time in billing, part-time in child support. 5 child support enforcement officers, which we usually refer to as CSOs, and 6 child support enforcement specialists, usually referred to as SESs. And we do have both state and federal guidelines that we're to follow when we enforce parental child support. We are responsible for the financial, the medical, and the child care portions of what goes into child support. Most of the duties include parentage, establishing parentage, making sure we have the right parents through genetic testing, orders for support, great help from Pat's staff through the county attorney's office with these, and really it all ties together along with the collection of payments as well, if there needs to be any court action in any of that. The 4 different areas that are represented by the graphs here, the paternity establishment, you'll see in the narrative at the bottom of the graph that the target is 80%, which is the straight line, and then our performance is above that at 90%. And even though you'll see some dip and change, I think regarding COVID in this last year, we're still well above our targets. The support order establishment, to get the order in place, also a threshold of 80%, and we're over 90% still. The last 2 can sometimes be a little more challenging. The collections for current support, the 73.93% of funds that were due were collected. You'll see a cost-effective ratio of every dollar we spend in expenses. We have almost $5 of payments that we get, so the cost-effectiveness ratio, which is good. There's always that margin of gap, and we're not at 100%, as you can imagine, for a lot of different reasons. Some are very legitimate, that the parent is not able to gain any income and has a responsibility but can't work. And then there's all kinds of other examples where we have to chase down the facts and try to build a case for what is actually going on and what's fair, always with the children in mind. That's really the mission. And then arrears, the dated support that's out there as well, even harder to capture. 41% of the arrears past due accounts were collected, and that gap is always even bigger, as you can imagine. So those are just, like I say, some of the measurables that we have, child support and billing. Any questions on that before I hand the baton to Kelly?
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
Morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
Hi, Kelly.
All right, Kelly.
Good morning. The weather's better than the last time I was here. It's a good morning. So back with some updates, but and some pictures on slides. But before we get to that, I just, as I was preparing for this board meeting, I went back and looked at all of the updates I had done January, February, March, moving into April here. And it was interesting. In January, we were talking about moving into vaccinations. So 4 short months ago, looking at the government centers, our location. In February, we were vaccinating EMS, childcare, moving into the over 65. Fast forward to March, we were talking about base allocations and a number of updates. And here we are today, still working with priority groups, but working with our public as well, saying if you are ready to get vaccinated, we're ready to vaccinate you. So in 4 short months, that's a really amazing amount of ground to have covered with our partners. So the slides in your packet are just a little visual of some of the things that go into our day. So our sign directing you to the Blue Earth County Clinic in the upper, looks like left portion of your packet. The table below that is just all of the supplies that are needed to vaccinate folks. So sharps containers, alcohol swabs, some of this pre-filled syringes that we drop each day. The middle slide is one of my staff actually drawing up a dose out of some of the vials that we receive for vaccine. The iPad with the little green polling pad at the bottom, we're, again, that partnership with elections. They helped us with some of our equipment needs, so that has been great. That helps us register people on site and check people in. And then the one below that is actually Scott Granberg-Rademacher, who's one of our community members who was kind enough and generous enough to provide some acoustical guitar music at several of our clinics. So many compliments, and it was just created a very nice atmosphere and brought some of the anxiety levels down. So that was very nice to have in addition to our clinic. Any questions on the pictures?
They're nice.
Very nice, yeah.
Awesome. Yep. So the second slide in your packet, I created just in time to make the deadline for this meeting, and it's already changed some of the information on it. So if you look on the left-hand side of your slide, our vaccine orders, or what we call a vaccine dose request, is due on Mondays by 8:30 in the morning. We are notified either Thursday, sometimes Fridays, of what we receive. So we have a base allocation, but sometimes we request more. Sometimes there are shifts in vaccine allocation from the federal level that can impact what we receive. Then we are now able to, and this has been a shift, to choose days, a combination of days for when that vaccine, those first doses arrive. It's either a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or a Thursday, Friday. We don't know which day they will be delivered on. So that creates a little bit of, we have to plan ahead and assume it's going to be the latter of the two, so that we don't get in a position where we don't have vaccine for a clinic that we've planned. I have the 72-hour rule on there. At the time I prepared this slide, the metrics from MDH where we had to use 90% of the vaccine we received in 72 hours. That changed to 60%, and as of yesterday, that rule has been relaxed and eliminated. So now but the 100% 7-day rule still, that metric is still in place.
So Kelly, you said you get to choose a delivery date for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but you don't know what, so you get to pick which one of those 3 you want?
Correct.
But you don't know which one it is?
Yeah, we won't know if it's like, if we choose the Thursday, Friday, we don't know if the vaccine is coming on Thursday or Friday.
It gets it narrowed down a little bit, but
a little bit, yeah.
That's got to be problematic.
And it's a little, it definitely creates planning challenges.
Yeah.
The 72-hour rule, it created extreme planning challenges. Now that has been relaxed, it will help.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, was that just a rule in Minnesota, or was that across the country? The 72 hours?
Each state did it a little differently.
That's what I thought.
And that was a metric that came from the state level.
Yeah. I know the commissioner said on Friday that she was getting rid of it.
Okay. So, all right, that's all I have on that slide.
So at this time, anyone over the age of 16 can get a shot, or is that 18? It's a Pfizer shot for 16, right?
Correct. So
for us, it's 18?
for the type of vaccine we currently have, it's 18 or older. We have Moderna vaccine that we're administering.
And if there's still people that need the shot, do they go online, or how would they go about getting the shot?
There's a number of different ways to find vaccine. In our community, we actually have 6 pharmacies that are providing, or 10 locations that are able to provide vaccine, and they have Moderna or Pfizer. It depends on the week, which vaccine presentation they have. Both of our healthcare providers, Mankato Clinic and Mayo Health Systems, along with Open Door, are also providing vaccines, and Public Health and the state of Minnesota's option. Each one has a little bit of a different pathway to get there, and that's all on the Minnesota Department of Health's website, all of the various options. And we also have materials that we've been sharing with groups that provide contact information for different vaccine opportunities.
I think it'll be really helpful on the look back. What would you change in the future? What did we learn from this? How would you do this? I think that's going to be really important. And I know it's going to happen, but everybody was running just to get it out.
Right.
And that was appropriate.
Yeah, we do have plans for hot washes within the coalition, so we've already done one. We're going to do another because, of course, as things move so quickly, as you referenced, it's hard to remember 4 months ago what was going on. So we're able to provide that feedback ongoing, and then at the end of the response, that will happen as well.
It was interesting also that Olmsted and Polk have the most vaccinations per capita.
You can't figure Olmsted.
Yeah, it was just interesting.
Backyard.
Yeah, they're going to send us the graphs, and so it'll be, and I'll share those if any of you are interested, because a multitude of graphs just as to what's gone on and how it's gone on and where counties are and that kind of thing.
Yeah, Olmsted had a couple of large events partnering with the state early on, which could have impacted that. Polk County, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that one surprised me. And for instance, the Native American community, they're 1% of the population, and they're 0.8 vaccinated, which, so they also showed, by...
Right, shows that equity.
Yeah, so kind of interesting.
Do you have the numbers of like Blue Earth County residents and how many percentage are vaccinated for first and second?
I do. So as of yesterday, and this will be updated at 11 o'clock again today, 28,566 Blue Earth County residents, or around 52%, are vaccinated with at least one vaccine dose, and 20,888 residents, or around 40%, have 2 or have completed the series. Okay. So if it's Janssen, 1 completes the series. If it's Moderna or Pfizer, 2 complete the series.
And when you say that the percentage, is that of the people that can be vaccinated or all residents?
Of those that can be vaccinated. So 16, that's the percentage for 16 and older.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Of that number, Blue Earth County's provided 7,436 total doses of vaccine.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of vaccine, a lot of... Another good news, another piece of good news that came out on Monday was the decrease in the positivity rate out of the Gander Mountain Regional Contact Tracing and Testing site. So it's down to 9.35% from last week. 2 weeks prior it was 12.27%, so trending downward as well.
We hope.
We hope. Last week we also had a 300-dose clinic at MRCI, a little more challenging to fill because of course those percentages that we talked about. people that were eager to get it, to get vaccinated, have done that. So now we're working with additional priority groups. That was our third clinic. We actually came out exactly even, so the last person was the last dose out of the vial. So that we've had that happen 3 times, which is actually quite remarkable to have had that happen, but staff were definitely working to get folks to fill that clinic, including knocking on some doors to see if folks were interested. So worked out well, but a lot more work to fill that clinic. And this week we're working with some of our community partners, again looking at focusing on groups who have barriers to access, trying to get them into the clinic this week, along with the public who is interested in being vaccinated.
And one of those clinics is about equity, right?
Correct.
Well, thank you, Kelly. Has anybody else got any final questions for Kelly? Or
Phil does.
Very good. Thanks, Kelly.
Phil?
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
I just want to make one more comment, just to recognize, Kelly in particular and some of her staff, but you guys have heard all this in bits and pieces, but to Commissioner's comment about what we're learning. I'll tell you, we've all done triage in some way or another in our professional life or in our family life, trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to do this? And for me, I'm always like, keep it simple. And it's not simple. And that's sometimes what I question, honestly, and I think we need help, is why I'm back up here saying, I look backwards on what we've been up against, and it's really a maze, and I wonder if how we set the table and how things get started isn't important to look at, because once you let the clutch out, it starts to fragment. And so I just wanted to list off what it is. First, doses available. We didn't have hardly any doses, and now we have too many doses and we can't get them out, right? So that's a variable. Type of doses, so the 3 different kinds of doses, the main ones that we have and more coming. Also, different rules, different ways to administrate. So another fragment that happens, and you can't get rid of these fragments. Time, which is the time that we were up against, this 72-hour thing was huge. Trying to manage the 72 hours was really a pain in the rear. And so that being gone is a huge relief. I think it's a demarcation of something that'll be a lot easier to administrate without those kind of restrictions. The settings, setting the clinic itself. So then once you commit, you heard Kelly say that, there are worries where you say, okay, we have 300 doses, we're going to get them out. Are those 300 people going to sign up, and are they going to show up? And if they don't, we have vials sitting there with vaccine, people desperately wanting vaccine, and we can't hit the mark. And so that pressure to get it right, and I can't tell you how many stories that we were down to 1 dose, and we had to get, it shot in an arm. And then the second doses, which is just another variable, so that once you're all done with the clinic and think you've kind of maybe checked a box, then you go, okay, now how are we going to get these same people back in the right time, depending on the kind of vaccine they have for their second dose? And you have to administrate all of that. And then the final one I wrote down was circumstances. On top of all of that is this crazy stuff that all of a sudden there was weather, the snowstorm, and everything gets backed up and the rules change, and then that stays with you forevermore, because however that hit your timeline. So I know you guys all have a ton of experience doing this kind of complex triage, but in that way, I think we started with so many things, because we were desperate. I mean, there's no doubt about that, to get stuff out the door. But when you do that, it's really hard to rein it back in down the road. And I think we're still kind of looking at that going, what have we learned? So I think it's a great question. But some of that will be to try to keep it tidy on the front end, I think, too. So, thanks a lot. It's good to see you all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil.
I would like to comment on Kelly and her group up there at MLRCI. My wife has volunteered up there, 3-4 times. And she said it's run like clockwork. She says it's just an amazing program that you folks, and Kelly, kudos to you and all your staff. Yeah. And Mary consistently comes back and says how awesome you folks work up there. And it's just, somebody comes in, they get their shot. They're not sitting waiting for a half an hour. It's just one after another. So you've done an awesome job. You made Blue Earth County proud.
Thank you very much for those kind words, and your wife has been an amazing volunteer as well.
She's an amazing woman. I can say that publicly.
He wants a public record.
And I think our clinic is unique in that respect. If you come 20 minutes early, we don't want everybody coming 20 minutes early, but if people come 20 minutes early, they just go into the flow. It's set up so you don't have to be exactly on time. We haven't had to send people back to their cars. If you come a little late, something happened, we just move you right through, and it's, yeah, it's a lot of work on staff's part for that. It looks like it's just easy, and there is a ton of work making that happen, making sure we have everything set up ahead of time, and you know, our vaccine is out of the freezer in time and ready to be used, and drawing it up and drawing the right amount and making sure we don't have too many at the end, and the supplies and all the questions that come up. You know, just from people coming through the clinic, whether it's clinical or scheduling, that are just managed right on site. So,
Good job.
thank you.
Good job.
Kelly, are you finding that everybody's coming back for their second dose, or are you seeing some people dropping off?
Some people drop off, but most are still coming back for their second dose. We've had more requests in the last week or so from people who received it somewhere else. And either we have one report where the original provider does not have that type of vaccine anymore and is not able to provide that second dose, or the scheduling of that particular provider just really doesn't work for the person seeking vaccine. So our first dose allocation and our second dose allocations are the same. So we have to monitor that fairly closely so that we don't all of a sudden run out on our second dose vaccines.
I know on the news they've been saying some people think one is enough, and it's not the J&J. And so there's some concerns about that.
Yep, and we've heard that. We haven't been experiencing that in large numbers.
That's good.
So.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, with that, we will move on to administration. Bob?
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for April 13th.
I'll move approval. Langhammer.
Pap seconds.
Got a first and a second for the minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, Stephanie would call the roll.
Commissioner Papp?
Aye.
Commissioner Peepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries for the minutes.
Next are the bills for the 2 weeks indicated.
I'll move approval, Stuenberg.
Thank you, Vance. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Mark seconds the bills. Any questions on the bills that haven't already been asked and answered? Hearing none, Stephanie, would do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Papp?
Aye.
Commissioner Peepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries for the bills.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 5 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for the board today. We filled a number of positions in our Property and Environmental Resources Department, a specialist, well, 2 specialist ones, so filled a couple positions there. We've also filled a License Center Specialist position in our License Center. We also had a promotion of a deputy sheriff to investigator, and so we've initiated recruitment to refill the deputy position. We also have initiated recruitment to fill a legal assistant position. And then we had a retirement of the accountant at the Public Works Department, and so we've initiated recruitment to fill that position. Be happy to answer any questions the board might have on the Human Resources agenda.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions for Bob on the report?
Pretty straightforward.
A lot of activity.
Yep.
Yes, it is.
I don't see any custody officers, so that's a good thing.
Should have done that.
All right. Anything else for the good of the order today, Bob, that you've seen that I missed?
That's all I have for you, Mr. Chair.
All righty. Well, we'll do commissioner reports at this time. And Vance, I think I'll start with you today.
Well, our last board meeting was on April 13th, and then afterwards we delivered cookies across the county to our different staff members and received a lot of positive comments on that. After I was done with that, I had a NACO Transportation Committee Zoom meeting. Let me see here. On the 21st, I had, I jumped ahead of myself. On the 15th, I had a library board meeting along with a youth community group meeting and a TDS board meeting. On the 16th, we had an AMC board meeting, myself and Commissioner Landcamer. I actually did the 8:30 and I skipped out and did the State Transportation Plans Policy Advisory Committee on that day to, this is a committee that I was placed on by AMC. Let's see here. We did our Public Works tour in Olmsted County on the 20th. And on the 21st, I had a community farm Zoom meeting. Things are really coming along. Actually, they have tentative plans to have a open house on May 22nd, which is a Saturday, and then the Tuesday before that to actually have GMG do a ribbon cutting out there. So that's tentative at this time, but it's kind of positive. And of course, you listen to all those master gardeners and how they do stuff, and you for myself, I get kind of amazed at the expertise of what they do. On the 22nd, I had a 169 executive board meeting, and that leads us up to today.
Thank you, Commissioner. Kevin.
It's already been mentioned, participated with other commissioners thanking our county employees in the Olmsted County. I also attended the Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustment training on April 15th, and then virtually attended the True Advisory Committee meeting on the 15th, the Sewer One Watershed, One Plan. April 23rd, had my 5th session of the AMC New Commissioner training on April 21st, and have met with staff and others concerning some Lawrence construction issues. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Kevin. Mark?
Okay, yep. After our last board meeting, we all went around. I had the Public Works for thank you to our employees, and that went well. I think the director told me he didn't get a cookie, but I don't think so. That was after. Anyway.
Did you eat it?
No. Anyway, then after that, April 14th did have a Regional Economic Development Advisory Committee, and that was actually John Considine's last meeting, because of course he's going to be working for Blue Earth County here, so that went well. Then we had our MICA board meeting on the April 20th, and then that's kind of, so the legislative activities, and that's continuing. Then we did have our Public Works tour, Olmsted County, and that was always interesting there with the tours. And then April 22nd had a Mankato Affordable Housing group meeting, and then Partners for Housing, we had a meeting before our Pedal Past Poverty, that same day, the 22nd. And then, I should say the 23rd, and then we had the Mayo, some of us were in person actually for the Mayo Public Affairs, I should say, their affairs deal with the legislative art contingent. And that was interesting. That worked pretty good. Sure, it was kind of neat to see other people there and not do everything on Zoom. And I think even they enjoyed it too, the legislators. So then we had I had the Pedal Past Poverty on April 24th, and Blue Earth County graciously let us use our new public ramp, and it worked so well that it was a little cool, but figured if the twins can do it, we can do it. And we did a lot better than, no, I shouldn't say how they're doing lately, but anyway. But we had less teams. Of course, we had 25 teams. And then if you notice, we had a gal, Busha from I didn't know, but she's a planker, that. Yeah. And she works as a custody officer at our jail, Blue Earth County Jail. She was there and raising money for partners, and she went like 3 hours and 10 minutes. But I didn't know that until I got there, and I mean, here she had a table and other people helping her, with the money and stuff and assisting her, but she had a picture of Brad and all that, the sheriff, and I was kind of, what? Yeah. So it was really kind of cool. And I kind of neat, our team, I had to be there early to help out, but our bike was right about the first one closest to, so we might bike for 20 minutes, and she was doing this thing for 3 hours. Anyway.
That's not easy either.
It encouraged me because, I biked even faster, harder when I saw. I couldn't believe she did that long. But anyway, but it was very successful. We raised, just to see a note today from our director, we raised over 100,000.
Yes.
We were approaching 100 the other day, but we've got over that now. Over 40,000 were in sponsorships, and the rest was in from the teams. So it was very successful. We haven't had a year successful like this for several years. So, and my team thought it would be kind of cool to have it back in the ramp. I don't know. Sure. Maybe I didn't check with other people. My team's a little crazy, Anyway, it worked well. And, the team, with all your support, actually, we raised more money than we ever did before. We had raised over 3,000 for our team. So,
Well, good for you,
so
Mark.
I want to thank you all. So it was actually more fun than a lot of them. We had a food truck there. Anyway, thank you. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. Awesome. It's very exciting to hear that you raised that kind of money for that fundraiser. A lot of effort into that. Colleen.
On 14th, I had Region 9 and 2 speakers. One was the guy who does CHS logistics. I still call it Honeymead, but it was fascinating. They have 12 business units, and when the Suez went down, they still had Panama, and he talked about just how you move the grain around the world. It was really interesting, and Mankato is still the largest CHS facility in the United States. Wow. So, but really interesting. And then we had a gentleman from MSU. They're opening a center for rural behavioral health. I guess they've been talking about it for a while, and it'll probably happen next fall, but he just talked about that they know that there's a lack of people who can do behavioral health, and so they're going to open a center. On the 15th, I had an emergency meeting for the Diversity Council. As you all know, we need to find a new executive director, so just trying to put together a committee that's going to put the plan together was that day. And 16th, as Vance said, AMC board meeting. The June meetings, they're hoping to do hybrid, in person and virtual. And we also had a virtual tour of United Health, which is really turning into insurance company that's making a difference and getting a lot more people in this state. And their main office is in Minnesota, as opposed, they're nationwide, but their main office is in Minnesota. On the 19th, I had a Minnesota Transportation Alliance legislative meeting, and the legislators were on. It was interesting, just in general. The gas tax, Draheim, Ackland, and Munson are all opposed to. Friends and Frederick were for it, and Julie couldn't be on that day. So just what legislation's moving forward. One of the things that really surprised me was the House has passed, well, it was the House, or it was the Senate, that they want to decrease vehicles mile traveled by 20% in the next decade. I understand how you can try and get rid of some of the pollution from that, but I think we're going to have more cars and more vehicle miles traveled, be that transit or cars. So that one surprised me, and it surprised everybody on the committee. Just kind of an interesting thought. Public Works tour. That night I had, on the 20th, that night I had Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership on the 4th Street project. The Good Sisters at Good Counsel are looking at what they have to get rid of their property and trying to figure out how to do that in a good way. 21st, I had Bridging Divides, which ties into futures. How do you bridge those divides that we've turned so far apart on, you know? If you say it's white, I say it's black. And so how do we bridge that? On 22nd, I had a White House call. Those are every Thursday. And they just talk about what's going on in the administration. 23rd, we were at the legislative meeting. And then I had a shack meeting. I've talked a lot about what had happened, but the commissioner was very clear that the data systems are so out of date and they need to be upgraded, and that's hopefully what will happen in the future. The other thing is, I asked, how is this being tracked? You know, I went to, Hy-Vee. Some people went to Thrifty White, some people went to Mayo's. Vance went to Minneapolis. And how are you tracking it? Yeah. And they said it all gets tracked by M11C, which is a data system that's in the Department of Health. So Department of Health is the holder of all the data. I wasn't sure how they were doing it, but that's how they're doing it. And then on the 24th, you guys were very noisy over there. I came down here to do a call with...
Good.
It was good. I was thinking, what is this? And I thought, oh, it's Mark's group. But I talked to some of the people in the master's program for social work on homelessness and affordable housing. I don't call it affordable. I call it workforce, senior housing, and disability housing, because that's what it is. People are working, or there's a reason they can't, or they're retired. So how appropriate to have it while Partners for Affordable Housing is going on. Partners for Housing, I'm sorry, I still haven't gotten there.
No, it's still...
A diversity meeting last night, executive, new exec and budgets. They got $49,000 from the school district to do some programming, and with COVID, they couldn't do it in person, so they did a lot of it virtual, and they're thinking about giving half that money back. I kind of disagreed with that, but I lost. Then this morning, and last night I had another small meeting on the 4th Street project, and we're going to put that on pause for a while. Just kind of let things tamp down a little. This morning I had the Airport Commission meeting, which, Vance, I really like it. Just thought I'd tell you that.
I always liked it too.
Yeah.
It was a good group.
Yeah, they would talk a bit about, are they going to do an air show in 2023? They'd like to have the Blue Angels, but the question is, the city council determines whether there's an air show or not. And then there was also concern about County Road 12. When was that? When are we going to be working on that? And luckily, Ryan told me it's 2022, so that shouldn't impede that. GMG is doing a tapestry project, just for everybody's information, tapestry project where people who in their home country own businesses now want to open businesses here, they're looking for business mentors to work with them. So I think that's a really good thing. MSU is going to have 600 students in the fall. So they continue to grow. 140 new students that weren't here last year that'll be here this year. And I think you'll all find the city approved the Kern Bridge financing last night to make the curve. And Sean Schlescher, I never can pronounce his last name, he worked for Region 9, he worked for Walsh before that, is going to be the new airport manager and transit manager. He'll be a city employee.
Wow.
Well, he's an Air Force vet.
Yeah, he is. That's all I have, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner.
That was a lot.
Busy. Yeah, most of the items that I was at have been mentioned already. I got to deliver cookies over to the Human Services Department. It is just a small token of our appreciation to our county staff, but at least it's something. And until COVID's over, I think we just need to respect our employees and try to at least show some sort of our appreciation, but not come up as a big group. Because I sure liked when we used to go around and visit all of them. That was a lot of fun, and we'll get back to that someday. Mark mentioned Micah. There's several things going on at the Capitol. They're busy trying to keep things rolling up there. I am on a statewide emergency communication board. We're rewriting the 403B policy, which I'm just have not been educated on it. We just had our first meeting the other day, and it's overwhelming to me, but I got to get the policy and read through it. And we're going to be meeting every other Wednesday for an hour from now till August. So it just gives you the undertaking that this is. It's just going to be a lot of work, but a lot of good staff on there from the state. So the Planning Commission training with Scott Anderson I thought was very beneficial. Kevin and I think Mark caught a little bit of it, but that Scott Anderson was always kind of an entertaining person. We got a lot of good information. I had a good turnout of people on there listening to it. So we had our MVAC executive committee meeting. Not a whole lot going on there, just a couple bookkeeping things that we meet every other month when we don't meet as a full board to deal with that. The Public Works tour was very nice to see. I think I walked away with more things that we got to be careful not to do than of things that we need to do. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I left that one thinking, well, this was a really good one because they'd been there for 10 years and they had a lot of opinions or advice on, do this, that, or the other thing. So I thought that was very beneficial to do with that. And then I had my statewide emergency communication board meeting, and everybody just gave the reports there. Things are moving along and keeping us busy with that board also. So that brings me to the end of my report and to the end of our business. Unless anybody else has anything to add, I will entertain a motion to recess.
Adjourn.
Adjourn.
Pat moves.
Second. You got a motion and a second. Stephanie, any discussion? Stephanie, you want to do the roll?
Commissioner Pat?
Aye.
Commissioner Pepo?
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer?
Aye.
Commissioner Sternberg?
Aye.
Chair Brunder?
Aye. Motion carries. We'll reconvene our work session at 10:30.
Cool.